Hi, Editing Rose here to say that my computer crashed. I lost all of my data, and this video that you're watching, I was about 85% done editing it. Lost all that. The only silver lining is that the raw footage of this video was saved. However, the good audio that I recorded with it, that was also lost. So I did my best in post to fix the mediocre audio quality that comes out of this camera that I use. Yeah, you be the judge. And yeah, okay, that's it. I just wanted to share my sad computer woes, and I think we should now head on over to all of the happy stuff, the happy Star Wars stuff.
This is where the fun begins.
Please just hold on. Look at this majesty. I love it so much. I found it at a really large outdoor market, and I got this for, I think it was 170 baht, which is about, I don't know, $6 roughly. Anywho's, okay, so what we're all actually here for, which is some book reviews and a mini book haul, all surrounded by Star Wars. And I gotta say, I'm so pumped that I've actually been reading, because, and I double checked with Goodreads on this to make sure, between the time of about May 2021 to September of 2022, I didn't read anything published because I just didn't feel like it. However, I finally got over that massive slump in September of 2022, and in the very end of 2022, when I still lived in Singapore, I read 6 Star Wars books from my then local library, and my mini book haul, I have purchased all of these since moving here to Thailand. Yeah, but we're gonna start with the book reviews, and I absolutely copied and pasted into my notes right in front of me my reviews, and hopefully they are sufficient enough, because if I had to go off my memory, it would not be a good time for any of us. The first book to talk about is The Saga Begins, The Best of Star Wars Insider by Jonathan Wilkins. I wrote, if you're a fan of Star Wars, and specifically about the Star Wars prequels, you're going to enjoy this. I did. The book is essentially like a scrapbook with all of the articles originating from the magazine Star Wars Insider. While I understand not wanting to alter, or alter as little as possible, an original piece, so to speak, it does have its drawbacks. Many of the images in the book aren't of the best quality. Some stylistic fonts are a little hard to read, and the print in most of the book was quite small, so even if you wear glasses, you might need some, like a magnifying glass or something. My only other critique, and part of the reason for my 4 out of 5 star rating, was the book had such a small section on Revenge of the Sith, while the one for Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones? Attack of the Clones? Yeah, that's right. Those were more robust. But again, Revenge of the Sith, it was so small in comparison, and I don't know why. That part was a little bit disappointing. And that's all she wrote. I would say, yeah, that's a recommendation from me. And out of the 6 books that I read, I think this is one of them that I would eventually want to purchase myself and put into my very small personal collection. The next book or comic that I read is called Star Wars, Obi-Wan and Anakin, #1 by Charles Soule. I'm not sure how to say his last name. I found this to be a pretty enjoyable and solid read, and I guess just a small side note, I'm still not very well versed in comics in general, so I guess perhaps keep that in mind. The art in the comic I felt was energetic, and it was a great aid in telling the story. And apparently there are 5 stories from this particular run of this comic, and I only read #1. Obi-Wan and Anakin are some of my favorite Star Wars characters, and I'm forever intrigued by their relationship. I had a great time seeing a time period that I know so little about, and that's what happened between Phantom Menace and the Clone Wars. That's the time period that this particular comic takes place in. Some spoilery thoughts. The story shows Anakin's conflicting feelings of his path to becoming a Jedi. Although I knew this, but it's still kind of heartbreaking and a bit disturbing to see how Palpatine has been manipulating Anakin since he was a young Padawan. Just as in the movies, Mace Windu he's wary of Palpatine. Sir, you were correct for this. I also got to learn some intriguing insight, and that is Obi-Wan. Had Anakin decided to leave the Order, Obi-Wan would have followed Anakin so he could complete his training. That is some dedication and serious loyalty and just love. My goodness. I don't think I am surprised by this, but it's fascinating to have this established. Something the story doesn't touch on and leaves unanswered is how most of the inhabitants of the planet Carnelian, my mind is a blank right now. That planet, they don't seem to even know what a Jedi is. Exactly how long have they been cut off from the rest of the galaxy? So that aspect was a bit, for me, because as far as I'm aware, I think the galaxy at large should be aware of and know of the Jedi for at least over 1,000 years. So again, how long has this planet been cut off from the knowledge of what a Jedi is? Anywho's, in conclusion, I gave that particular comic 4 stars, and I do want to continue in reading it. The next book that I read is a nonfiction book. It is called Heroes of the Force, The Best of Star Wars Insider, again by Jonathan Wilkins. Overall, I enjoyed what this collection had to offer, but it felt a little bit scattered. While most of the content does focus on Heroes of the Force, which from the title alone I interpreted as a focus on specific heroes from Star Wars movies and shows, the book, I think, it deviates into broader topics multiple times. There is a section on Dave Filoni, reflecting on the last season of the Clone Wars, a section discussing midichlorians, a section on Mad Magazine parodying, however you say that word, Star Wars many times, etc. While these are not bad topics or articles to read, but I felt like they belonged in a different collection, if you follow me. Perhaps on a side note, another Insider Collection book I've read by Jonathan Wilkins is The Saga Begins, The Best of Star Wars. I noticed that there was a tiny bit of repetition from that book in this book, Heroes of the Force. Just minor bits of articles from and about Ewan McGregor and Samuel L. Jackson. They were the same in both. I wouldn't call this a criticism, just something I noticed. I'm sure it's natural. Some book topics may overlap like this sometimes, especially since Jonathan is pulling from the same specific source. Overall, I rated this particular book a 3.5 stars. Still a recommendation from me. Next, I read, again by Jonathan Wilkins, a nonfiction book, Lords of the Sith, The Best of Star Wars Insider. I think my honest rating is around 3.75 stars. Overall, quite enjoyable, and I got to learn some new insight into characters and the actors who portrayed them. That's always lovely. There are a few reasons why I didn't give this a 5-star rating. Wow, that's quite the jump. The section on Darth Maul was surprisingly small. The collection was published in 2017, so I'm sure there were articles on Darth Maul and the Clone Wars and Star Wars Rebels. The collection did briefly touch on perhaps a lesser known Sith called Darth great. What I wish is that, if available, there had been articles on other Sith, like Darth Bane, for example. Heard of him, and I feel like, if I remember my Star Wars lore correctly, I think Darth Bane is one of the first Sith? Something like that. I feel there was a missed opportunity to even briefly talk about Darksiders from Star Wars Rebels, such as the Inquisitor or the Inquisitors, because I think there's more than one. Since Darksiders are not technically Sith, I can understand at the same time why they might not have been included. And I finished up my thoughts by saying I can't put my finger on it, but it did feel like this collection was missing a little something. And the next item that I read, it was another comic. Star Wars Kanan Volume 2 First Blood by Greg Weisman. I accidentally read Volume 2 before Volume 1. Part of that was because the library, it just didn't have Volume 1. So I ended up skipping one. Oops. I wrote, the story jumps back and forth between the present time with Kanan and his rebel family and in the past. In the past, we see Kanan become a Padawan of Depa Billaba, and then it follows into some of their first few missions together during the time of the Clone Wars. In the present, we're kind of plopped into one mission going wrong, then eventually a small rescue mission of a friend of Kanan's after that. I think for most of it, the two stories connect well enough, but it comes to a point where the flashbacks stop and it remains mostly in the present. When that happens, the last bit, the last mission, felt a little out of place. I can't put my finger on why just yet, unfortunately, but that was my initial thought. I do feel like I got to learn more about Kanan overall, who I have seen in Star Wars Rebels, which, side note, I really enjoyed that one. Season 4 had some issues, but overall, I really enjoyed that show, and I do recommend that. Back to the review. Where was I? Not surprising, but it turns out Kanan has always had a bit of a rebellious streak. And since I read a copy from my then local library, I think it was missing the epilogue, so a little sad about that. Overall, a fine story and solid art for sure, but I'm not sure I would consider it a solid, strong piece. But still, I would recommend it if you are, in particular, are interested in learning more about Kanan Jarrus, or if you're just overall wanting to know anything and everything about Star Wars. The last book that I read in 2022 was, this is a mouthful, the Star Wars book, Expand Your Knowledge of a Galaxy Far, Far Away by Pablo Hidalgo. A pretty good general reference book for anyone wanting a quick answer to who is this or what was this event about. This book isn't exhaustively expansive, as I'm sure it could have been, but more of a quick overview of many characters and events in Star Wars canon as of the publication date, which was in 2020. Its main focus seems to be from all 9 Star Wars movies, some information on the Clone Wars show, and just the tiniest little sprinkling of The Mandalorian. At that point, it would be, I think, The Mandalorian only season 1. It's clear the information was taken from many sources, including movies, comics, books, etc. This aspect is good in case you were confused, for example, of who all of the hooded figures in the end of The Rise of Skywalker were on Exegol, since, at least to my memory, the movie didn't explain it, but to be fair, I've only seen that movie once, and I probably won't see it again. Anywho, or if the movie did answer it, it must have been a very quick and passing singular line. In any case, the hooded figures are apparently Sith cultists. Okay, my rating comes down to a few different criteria. Objectively speaking, I've taken off points for 1. There is some odd inconsistency in when and who they use the label of status report. So, for instance, a majority of characters within the book do have a status indicator whether currently in known canon the character is alive, deceased, or missing. There were a few characters that I knew are deceased in canon, but there was no status report for them. So yeah, it was inconsistent on who was even given a status report. Number 2, I noticed very minor punctuation errors, which is a nitpick, but it's still a mistake in a published book. And 3, there was a technical nitpick, but incorrect information nonetheless. When I came across the description of Luke Skywalker having his right arm cut off, I'm also positive there were other instances of incorrect information like this, which is odd and a little disappointing for some kind of official Star Wars publication. And part of my subjective rating comes from some material in the book simply not interesting me. There are some characters, for example, that I don't care to reference or really care to learn about, and so their specific pages were of just no use to me. So I rated this particular nonfiction book 3 out of 5 stars. That's all I have in my notes for my reviews. Let me know if you've read any of these books. And okay, I'm not really sure if I'm particularly interested in reading any Star Wars books from the Legends, because I know some of them get a bit out there and a little bit bonkers, and to my knowledge, I don't think George Lucas really gave his stamp of approval. He's like, my movies are over here and those books are over here. They're cool over there, but they don't really touch. That kind of feeling and sentiment. And there are definitely some further Star Wars books that I want to read, but I think specifically Legends, probably not. Okay, need to stop this before it quits on me. Be right back. Oh my gosh, oh my knees. Okay, I think we're all ready to move on to my mini book haul. My brain stopped working for a moment. In no particular order, there are 4 Star Wars books, and I got all of them from at least here in Bangkok, it's a popular book chain. Wow, hello in there. It's called Kinokuniya. One of the books that I got is this. Now, honestly, like one of my prized possessions. The Star Wars Archives, episodes 1 through 3, and it is by Paul Duncan. What is there to tell about it? It's so clear that Mr. Duncan, he did his research. There is just a plethora of behind-the-scenes information for the making of the prequel trilogy, interviews from all over, from the various artists, George Lucas himself, and from the actors. It is just chock full of behind-the-scenes goodies. I'm pretty sure I've mentioned at some point in one of my videos that I love, and I am such a sucker for learning behind the scenes stuff of movies and television shows, and this kind of ties in with, fun fact, I was a theater major in college. I had an emphasis in acting. Essentially what I learned from that is I actually prefer working behind the scenes than I do being an actor, basically. I have started reading this. I did start reading this particular book back in like April, I think, and I got to somewhere in Attack of the Clones and then I just paused. I'm not DNFing this book. Oh, trust me. At some point I need to pick it back up, obviously, and I haven't decided if I'm just going to continue on reading from where I paused or if I'll just start over. Choices. While I've been paused for an absurdly long period of time, have been thoroughly enjoying this so much. And okay, you can't see it here. I've been tabbing little bits here and there of just little factoids that I find particularly interesting. So for example, I've been tabbing just information about the Jedi and George's own views on the Jedi, because I really don't think I'm ever going to do this, but I had kind of played around with the idea of making a video on the Jedi, purely because there are just some Star Wars fans out there that have a really bizarre view of the Jedi, some in, I think, in bad faith, and then there are some people who just, they don't like the Jedi, which I cannot comprehend. So just any of the critique out there, and it just makes me...
They ask you how you are, and you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine.
And so it would basically be a video in defense of the Jedi, which is wild to even think that they need defending, because my gosh, they're the good guys. Why is this controversial? How for anyone? But I don't think I would ever make it, because the Star Wars fandom in general, I think especially on YouTube, y'all make me nervous. And I don't know if I want to make such a particular and pointed video just to get possibly and probably some nonsense in the comment section. So there's that. Moving on to the next one, as you can imagine, the companion piece, I suppose you could say, also by Paul Duncan, the Star Wars Archives, episodes 4 through 6. Again, same deal, just absolutely chock full of behind the scenes of Star Wars, how it was all made, how this bout of happiness, how it all came together. I have not read this yet. I haven't started reading this yet. I don't know when I'll get to it. I'm in no hurry, and I'm pretty sure in my lifetime I'm probably gonna reread these books multiple times, because they're a source of joy, they're a source of happiness for me. And the next book, or another book that I got, is the biography George Lucas, A Life by Brian J. Jones. I am currently reading this, and it's taking me a while. I'm savoring it all, whatever. It essentially, it follows George's life from childhood all the way up to, well, when this was published in 2016. And I'm not well versed in biographies, but I think Mr. Jones is doing a fine job with this book. I think his writing, it's clear. I've laughed plenty of times. It has a nice flow to it. How do you review biographies? I think he goes into really sufficient detail. Bottom line is, I'm enjoying this, and honestly, I think only if you are interested in reading about George Lucas, then you too will enjoy this. If you're not, then don't read this. And I am currently at the part where it is finally getting into talking specifically about Star Wars and the making of. Oh, and I think another really cool aspect about this, and I think this would probably apply to any other biographies, correct me if I'm wrong. What is really fun is getting these little tidbits of what it was like in the 1950s, in the 1960s, in the 1970s. From George's childhood, I get little tidbits of what I think he would, I don't know, middle class, like someone in middle class, what their life would have been like. Just the little nuggets. And then I'm getting plenty of nuggets of just what Hollywood is like. And I can assure you, ooh, Mr. George here, he is not a fan of Hollywood, particularly the top dogs, the people who call the shots and give out the money. He's not a fan. Pretty much because he's like, they don't understand the art, they don't understand, nor seem to care to understand what the directors are doing, their visions, and even like the actors. There's such a disconnect, and honestly, that still applies today. I think I've rambled on enough. I recommend it, even though I'm only 30-something% of the way through. And the most recent book that I picked up, oh, I just remembered. When I went to pick up this book specifically, Star Wars, Revenge of the Sith, by Matthew Stover. I did some vlogging just on my phone, so pardon, I don't know how great that particular quality is. I have an older phone, yeah, but I don't know, just to give a little peek into my excitement of picking this up from, again, Kinokuniya, and just a few of the things that I got up to that particular day when I went to pick it up. Revenge of the Sith. I'm very excited to read this. It is obviously the novelization of the movie Revenge of the Sith. Ooh, fun fact. I went to see back in, I think it was 2005, the midnight premiere of Revenge of the Sith, at least in my hometown. So therefore I just saw it at midnight, and I remember having a really good time. I didn't dress up, but I'm pretty sure I wore a Revenge of the Sith t-shirt that I most likely got from Hot Topic, and I'm pretty sure the crowd that I watched the movie with, I want to say something like 20 to 30% of them dressed up, like properly dressed up in some sort of Star Wars outfit costume. So that was a lot of fun. And yeah, okay, so back to this. I've kind of mentioned here and there in the past, I'm on Tumblr. I will never tell you who I am, and any further information beyond that, that information is between me, my husband, and my future grave. But the people that I talk to, fellow fans of Star Wars, a few of them have really encouraged me to read the novelization of Revenge of the Sith, because if you are a really big fan of Obi-Wan and Anakin, and in particular their dynamic and their relationship, it has it all in there. Super excited to read this. I don't know when I'm gonna read this just yet. I think normally I'm totally cool with reading more than one book at a time, but I think for Star Wars, I don't know, maybe it's because it's all in the same bucket. I don't know. I think I'm gonna wait until I'm done with this, and then I'll probably move on to this. It's gonna be read, oh for sure. Do I even need to tell you what this, no, surely I don't need to tell you what this is about. I'm pretty sure y'all watching this are Star Wars fans, right? Right? I'm just joshing. This book and this story, it really just follows the last part when Anakin Skywalker falls to the dark side. It's just the catalysts, the very bad choices that he makes to eventually and officially fall to the dark side and become, visuals, freaking love visuals, and fall to become Darth Vader. And some other like sad stuff happens in there. Favorite characters? Anakin, Obi-Wan, and who's my top? Ooh, who's my third? Popping into my head is probably Luke. So just, I'm basic, call me basic that way, but whatever. I was looking in the viewfinder and like, because this t-shirt it's so oversized, it's like a large or an extra large, and it has such big armholes, it is making my arms look like little sticks, just sticks, waving about. Do I have anything else to say? Because this is about to shut off. What are some of your favorite Star Wars movies? Who are some of your favorite Star Wars characters? I already asked about the whole books thing, but if you do have any book recommendations, probably not in Legends, but if you have any other Star Wars book recommendations, please let me know in the comments down below. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you all in my next video. This is about to shut off. Bye!